Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Scott Gerber back with us today. He's an ONU Law Professor. He's in ADA today. We're talking a little bit about Ketanji Brown Jackson, the judge that's up for a confirmation vote on Friday. Very timely. One of the things she said, Dr. Gerber, that she will be neutral and interpret the law. In fact, she said that multiple times to questions. I think some of the lawmakers trying to get more specific into her philosophy. You wrote an op-ed and you talked about that idea of telling what the philosophy is, and you said we deserve to hear that, right?
Yeah, I had a piece come out about a week ago in USA Today, and I actually teach a course this semester in constitutional interpretation, and you cannot interpret the law without a judicial philosophy. The law is not self-interpreting, and there's a whole host of different philosophies that I talk about in the op-ed that apply to the Constitution, that apply to statutes, and that apply to case law. And you can't just say, I'll interpret the law. It's not possible because the law is not self-interpreting.
You especially when it comes to the Constitution, you talked about this, and actually we've chatted about this before, whether you're an originalist or a very structuralist or very strict to it, or maybe a more loose interpretation. Maybe if you could talk about how that would play into her rulings when it comes to Roe versus Wade and some of the other big key issues that they're going to have on the table.
Yeah, so there are 6 prevailing approaches to interpreting the Constitution, and I'll go from narrowest to broadest. There's textualism, where you just focus on the language. There's an originalism, where you try to discern what the original meaning of the language was by those who wrote it. Then structuralism, how the Constitution, its various parts fit together. Then there's doctrinalism, which is just looking at prior precedents. Then there's what's called prudentialism, which is kind of a cost-benefit analysis, a policy view. And then finally, there's what's called moralism, which kind of is just an ethical, big picture, justice kind of approach. And they often lead to different approaches and different answers. And so in the op-ed, I just point out that if you're a textualist, you'll say there's no right to privacy in the Constitution because the word isn't used there. But if you're a moralist, you'll say it's central to the Constitution because the ethical core of the Constitution is protecting individual liberty.
We've talked in the past about how political, obviously, the process has become and whether there should be some kind of outside neutral arbitrator in this whole process. In a perfect world, I think the philosophy thing obviously is crucial, but do you worry that if lawmakers from both sides of the aisle hear the nominee's philosophy, then they're just going to say, oh, well, I don't like that philosophy, and immediately rule him out? It's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess.
It is, but now the process is so broken now. If you're not of the senator's political party, they're going to vote against you almost always. You know, we have 3 exceptions this time through with Murkowski, Collins, and Romney from the Republican Party. But the job is too important for someone not to tell the American people what the judicial philosophy is. And she's going to get confirmed. She deserves to get confirmed and all of that. But I got to say, I was disappointed when she ducked that question because she knew she has one. She just doesn't want to say what it is.
You know, this was a very interesting op-ed for me because it did get me to thinking, because I was talking to some people and the idea was being thrown around. She seems smart. She knows, as you mentioned, knows the law. She has a successful history in judicial practice in doing these things. But as you mentioned in the op-ed, that's not enough, right?
Yeah, it's not enough. That's one of the most important jobs in the world, or in the country at least. 1 in 9 members of the highest court in the land. And there are lots of people that can do the job, in my opinion, thousands of people, and she can do it. But she should tell us what her philosophy is. We deserve to know that. The Senate needs to know that. The president should have known that, all of that.
Yeah, you made a good point too. Friday, probably the confirmation vote will come up. As you mentioned, it's probably a safe bet, especially with 3 Republicans now on board, that she's going through, right?
Oh yeah, I think the vote will be 53-47. There might be one other Republican that slides over. I think I would be shocked if any Democrats voted against her, and they shouldn't vote against her because on traditional criteria, she's well qualified, as are lots of people, but she certainly is.
Great piece. If folks want to read that, I love the fact that some of the past segments we've talked about where you describe people and judges and how they look at the Constitution. They all kind of came to this point. It worked out very well for us. Dr. Gerber, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Nice chatting with you. We'll be back right after this.